Hey everyone, Sean Pearce, President and CEO of Dental Peers, Canada's preeminent buying group purchasing organization for dental practices run independently by the dental owners themselves who are looking for those opportunities to be able to compete a little bit better with the DSO world by coming together and saving money on all kinds of business services and business sundries and all the good things that keep your business running. And that's what we're all about. And today we're bringing you another installment of Quick Hits. And I'm bringing back one of my favorite guests, one of my good friends, Anne Genge, my cybersecurity AI expert extraordinaire. Anne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to be here as always.
It's always fun because I know we always, if people could see us before we actually start recording and kind of the laughing and it's sort of like, uh-oh, we got okay, serious faces now, serious faces. This is
All
serious
right.
stuff.
It is very serious. Oh, God. I know, but Sean, you were starting to tell me like about the things that we see on texts and emails and so on. And I just it is funny, but it is also scary. But anyway, I'll let you tell yours.
Well, and I mean, I've followed along with a lot of the stuff that you post and talk about, and obviously you get into some of the technical and the ever evolving technology that is shaping the world of cybersecurity and how to protect your systems and stuff like that. But you always still bring it back to that one basic key element, and that's the human error component. That doesn't
Mhm.
matter how good and how much money you've invested in great technology to filter out things. If somebody just clicks on the wrong link, you know, all your best intentions get thrown
Yeah.
out the window. And I mean, how like all you can do is coach on that, I guess, right? Like, what do you do? What do you say to
Yeah.
people when you're talking to them about that?
Well, it's really funny because everywhere you look, you're being sold the fear of it all, right? I don't feel that people learn very well in fears. That's why I come on here and have chats with you because we can do it in a more comfortable, fun way. But humans are your greatest risk, but also I also see it as our greatest asset or our best way to solve it too. Because if we can just teach people some very basic skills, even just like pausing and kind of like looking at something and using a bit of critical thinking, like, does this make sense? Like the story you're probably going to tell in a second, is that we can solve so much of it. And so I think where we're at right now, we have AI and it's doing great things for us, but it's also helping cyber criminals in a big way. So now we're back to this place where, yeah, there's tons of technology we can put in place, but what if we could have humans as the first line of defense instead of having them just being tricked and opening the door to cyber criminals, where then they can get in with all of their Gucci tools and wreak havoc on especially on healthcare and so on that are some of the hardest hit with this stuff.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, it's there seem things always seem to happen in waves, right? I mean, the longest period of time, it seemed like every time I turned around, I'd be getting friend requests from some attractive 20-year-old scantily clad woman on one of my social media platforms. And I'm kind of
Yeah.
thinking, right, because you're that's exa I'm ex a 60-year-old married guy is exactly the person you want to be friends with, right? Haven't got one of those in the longest time. What I'm getting a lot more of is texts. I'm getting tons and tons of texts. I mean, some of them will be like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Chicago next week. We should get together for dinner." And I'm like, "Great, Chicago's only a 12-hour drive. What's the problem with that?" But the
Yeah.
one I got one today, and this one was kind of curious because it was the first one that actually identified me. It said,
Okay.
"Hi, Sean Piers, is that you?" And
Yeah.
you're kind of like thinking, oh, this person actually does know me. Maybe they're real. And then all of a sudden
True.
brakes go on. Hold on
Yeah.
here. Wait
Yeah.
a sec. If they know me, they're not going to say, hi, Sean Pierce, right? I don't say, hi, Anne Genge. How are you today?
Right, right.
You're
So
going to,
you picked up on it, but I find some of the most successful ones actually are the ones that are more vague. And I'll let you finish your story, then I'm going to tell you how I got tricked and I got right down the rabbit hole. But anyway, so you were see you're tuned in, right? And we have a lot of conversations about this stuff and you're watching me, but you're watching a million other people talk about what's happening. And the types of things that seem very simple, but then end up, you know, compounding into big breaches. That's what's happening. And it's not just happening in big business. It's happening even more so in smaller businesses, dental practices. We just don't hear about them because they don't make the national news. Some even go unreported, which is another problem we can talk about another day. But in this case, immediately. So I guess you didn't reply to it because you thought, okay, this is not right because of what you just said. They would probably just say your first name, right?
They would have just said their first name and I mean, like, again, it's effective, right? Because we all go through some those times when, maybe we've changed phones, we've lost data on our phones, something
Mhm.
happens and we're trying to reassemble things. So, we're sending messages out to our friends saying, I lost everything. I'm trying to reassemble my phone catalog again. Is this your right number? But it's sort of like, first of all, the Hey Sean Pierce. No, the friend's not going to say Hey Sean Pierce. And
Yeah,
secondly, they're going to identify themselves. You know,
yeah,
you not can't expect me to just remember your phone number all the time. I mean,
yeah,
gone
yeah.
are those days. I can tell you my teenage phone number still, but I couldn't tell you what my current phone number is, right?
Speaking of teenagers, you're supposed to reply to that text message is who dis?
Who did? Okay.
Go ask your daughter. She's supposed to say who dis?
Got to know the lingo. Is that it? Got to
Yeah,
know the
you got to get the
lingo.
lingo.
Okay, well,
Um,
I mean, I was never cool when I was in high school, so I transitioned to being the
no.
non-cool dad really easily. That was a seamless flow for me. But no, I mean, that was the other red flag for me is the person, whoever sent this, didn't
Mhm.
identify themselves. So I'm thinking,
Yes,
if it really is
yes,
someone I know, they're going to say, "Hey, Sean, it's Anne. I think
yes,
I've lost stuff. Have I got the right number for you?"
right.
So that none of that was there. So, I did have an original, oh, maybe I should reply and ask, who is this? And then I thought, wait a sec. And that's when all the things started to cascade and made me thinking, no, I'm going to do the slide over report as a
Good.
scam or something like that and
Yeah.
leave it at that.
No, because reporting then lets, our telecom providers, our email providers, in internet services know and block certain attacks from certain emails or IP addresses or phone numbers and so on. But I always say that given the right circumstance, anybody can be tricked. A few years ago, I got a Facebook message, and it was from Barb. I won't say her last name, and it just said, "Hey, Anne, when you get a moment, I'd like to talk to you about a business idea." Which the context is perfect, right? So because that person knows that I'm an entrepreneur. Well, I went back and forth quite a few messages with this person before I thought, okay, I don't think this is Barb, who I think it is Barb.
Yeah.
And then I realized it came through on a spoofed account from this Barb person. So it was a secondary account that appeared to look like this person. So I went down, 5 or 6 messages before even I figured out that it wasn't correct, right? And I do this for a living. It wasn't legit. So I think it's everybody should be looking at every message with the idea that, this might be bogus, right? And that until proven otherwise. I mean, it's so sad that I have to say that, and that's where we're at. But um, this type of thing, if it was my mother and got that message this morning, she would have done that. She would have been like, "Oh, who is this?" And then who knows what would have happened after that, right?
Well,
So
that's it. And I mean, you kind of touched upon something there. Um, Despite your knowledge, your best intentions, the radar that you have, I think for a lot of us, human nature is to trust people,
mhm.
right? I mean, at least until the point when those people have proven themselves to not be trustworthy, our sort of first instinct is to be somewhat trusting, depending on
Yeah,
circumstances. But that's what we want because we want to have faith in each other. So that's what these things are preying upon is that instinct of trust. So it is hard to try to coach that out of people. But it's something that in the world of cybersecurity we have to do. And you mentioned like we're not going to hear in the news about the big dental breaches unless it happens to a 123 or a dental corp where they've got
Mm.
you know hundreds of offices across the country, and therefore the patient database is going to be that much bigger.
Hmm.
But to the individual dentist operating just their own independent practice with 1,200 or so patients, that's probably not making the news. But dentists
Yeah.
are such prime targets because of the quality of information and often the easier firewalls to get through, right?
Yeah, I mean that, and you just mentioned firewalls, and that's a big thing because a lot of people have firewalls, but many of them don't have the right grade of firewall, or they don't have it monitored. So some of those doors and windows, I call them doors and windows, but a firewall essentially has about 65,000 doors and windows in them. We want all of them closed except for the ones that are absolutely necessary to do certain aspects, like connect with our practice management software. But it's very common to find a lot of those doors just wide open. But let's back up a little bit to the cell phone situation, because I think that a lot of people don't understand the connection or the prevalence of malware on personal devices that can then ripple through. For example, a case, now it was about 7 years ago, and I know a lot of things have changed when it comes to two-factor authentication. Phone gets infected because buddy clicked on something, got malware on the phone. A lot of information stored in his notes section, including his login to different software accounts and the passwords being stored in that notes section. So the bad guys got into some of those accounts through the notes section on the person's phone. And you think about now, even the way two-factor authentication is handled by sending the second code or sending that code to your email, as an example. So if our email account is taken over by somebody, now they have access to the 2FA as well. And I don't
Mhm.
want to make it too complex, but I think what we need to remember is we're in a world now that's very different than it was even 5 years ago. In the last 20 years, we've started connecting. Dentists have done a brilliant job on digital adoption, but they're very complex digital environments with lots of different connections in hardware and software, and a blurring of lines between practice and personal devices as well. And so what we end up with here is, tons of exposure without the knowledge really of what that ends up meaning, where one infection over here can create this ripple effect. So again, and I'm a partner in a cybersecurity company, so I'd never say don't buy these cybersecurity services and controls. And that's not just because I want to protect my livelihood. You need those, right? But what I've learned over the last 20 years is that the human-centered approach is where we're getting the biggest bang for the buck. And yet it's the most neglected, which is weird because it's actually very affordable and doesn't really take a lot of time. If you give me an hour a year of somebody's time and they're paying attention, I can create a human firewall very easily. So it's kind of weird because we're still, we went through this in the beginning of, say, 20 years ago. We'd say, don't open an email from anybody you don't know. And then we had antivirus and other tools that came into play, and we started to feel a little more relaxed about it because it would catch things. And then cyber criminals figured out, oh boy, we can't get through these controls. We better start tricking the humans again with more vigilance, because we need Mary or Bob to open the door for us, right? And so there became the sophistication where cyber criminals went from being, just teenagers in a hoodie to the success of extortion and online data theft, and nation states, of armies are cyber hackers now. And it's all about tricking the person to opening the door. And it's when you have so much of a digital footprint, as an example, they can scrape that. I could go on your LinkedIn profile. I could see some of the things you're involved with, and they're going to see things I'm involved with, uh, volunteer things, or the fact that I did this course. And they could come on my LinkedIn and say, I see that you took the course at Queen's University. Did you like that? And I'd be like, yeah, it's a great program. And then I might get into a conversation, and yet I'm talking to somebody who maybe the avatar doesn't even on their profile doesn't even exist. Like maybe it's not even a real person. I'm sure I've done it, but that's just where we are.
And that's it. And I think that's the thing. You're doing that unusual aspect by in the world of technology of not simply relying on more technology to protect the existing technology. Let's focus a little bit on the people, because the people can still be that weakest link or the strongest link, depending on how we've coached them. But there's so much more that we could say on this topic. God, I think we could probably talk for a couple hours. We mean we'll be it's by the time we're done, it'll be 5 o'clock somewhere. We'll have to pull out a drink and keep her going. But this is quick hits, so we're gonna wrap this one up. But there'll be more chats with Anne and more chats with other mystery guests who will be sitting right there in the quick hits chair, just talking about things that matter from a business side of dentistry. Sometimes it's very serious. They're not always fun like this. But sometimes we always just want to have some fun with it. So until then, Anne, thank you so much for being here again. Really appreciate having you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, everyone. Until the next installment of Quick Hits, this is Sean Pierce signing off. I look forward to seeing you the next time.